Hello,
Hello,
everybody.
hello.
Oh my goodness. All right. So, cameras on. We're good. Hi, everyone. My name is David Gillespie. I'm a product marketing manager at Vimeo. Welcome, everybody, to our talk on how to engage and convert using video content. Tonight, or today, I should say, I am joined by some really incredible voices. I'm going to start with closest to me, Christina, and then we'll go to Adamola. If you both don't mind, like just doing a quick introduction about yourselves, where you at, and what's your focus in the world of video and marketing, and then we'll jump back into what we're all here to do. Go
Should
ahead,
probably
Christina.
unmute myself before I start talking. Hi, everyone. I'm Christina. I am the head of marketing at Plot, which is a creative management software for social teams. I'm currently out in Boston, so if anybody's going inbound, I will be there. And yeah, in terms of the world of content and video specifically, I'm a content creator by choice. Also came from my job. But yeah, I love everything video. I'm a bit more of an amateur than everyone else here in this webinar, but very glad to be a part of this.
I'm an amateur when it comes to creating content. I'm happy to help manage and plan, but actually making Adamola.
Hey everyone, my name is Adamola. I have a bit of a cold, so if I sound disinterested, it's not because of you. But yeah, our team helps B2B SaaS companies make better video content, tell better stories, and drive leads using video. Super excited to be here.
That's incredible. Yeah, that
Thank you.
this is our focus. And chat, love seeing everybody jumping in from Tennessee and Massachusetts. I'm in Philly myself. And Boston, Adamola, you are where
Oh, right. The
did you
place that
dox
I
yourself?
live.
Did you tell us
Oh,
where you live?
I'm in Toronto, Canada. Canada is a real place for anyone that thinks otherwise.
Absolutely. I think the US lost some battles in Canada, back in our ancient history, if anybody wants to go digging. Um, so today is, an auspicious day, and I love both of your roles 'cause it's fitting in perfectly with our our hope for today, which is really talking about video content for business and how it can be used to tell stories, how it can be used to help drive revenue, and connect companies to their audiences. And I'm really excited for this. So, folks, just by way of a little bit of housekeeping, remember, chat is great and all, but if you have a question for us, by all means, toss it into the Q&A and we will be able to get to questions at the end. But until then, we are going to jump into just some just some quick, the role of video in marketing, in connecting us to our customers. I think that all of us here either have experience doing that work or assisting companies in doing that work. And I think that, this will be a really phenomenal topic for all of us to dig into. So I want to start off with I think a lot of times with companies that are trying to introduce themselves to customers, or actually, my company right now is doing a bunch of like reframing. We actually have a conference coming up called Reframe. And we're reintroducing ourselves to a lot of people. And then there's just folks that are, trying to get started in the world of business. And I think that a lot of times people will focus on like, here's what my company does, but a little less on here's the story of either how we came to be or the story of us working with customers, that kind of thing. And if I could just start us off talking about the importance of storytelling, especially in video. I think video has like a really phenomenal role to play in storytelling. So I'd love to hear both of your take on kind of the use of storytelling in marketing and connecting companies to their customers. If either of
Yeah.
you have some like initial takes on that, I'd love to just start us there.
Can I start with a little bit of beef that I have with B2B SaaS companies? I guess a lot of companies in general. I can't really say that it's just B2B SaaS, but I will say, like, those people that you meet in your life that just like they meet you and then they start talking about themselves, and you're like, wow, I really want to exit this conversation. that is what happens in a lot of video that comes from companies, right?
Right.
We just have like this feed of this is why we're so great or this is why we're the best. And you're like, okay, but like what can you do for me, right? In a
Right.
very sort of unselfish way. Like you just want to know, like, should I be talking to this company or should I be talking to this person in the example that I gave? But if all they do is talk about themselves and why they're so amazing, then the interest kind of just dies immediately. We're living in a world now where we're just bombarded with social media content, advertisements, all of this. And I feel like our filters are just way more advanced than they used to be. So
Sure.
going back to what you were saying earlier about storytelling, I think it's really important to sort of flip the current narrative on its head and say, like, hey, instead of talking about why we're so great all the time, maybe let's talk about the people that we want to serve and highlight them as the hero. And then once we have their interest, we can talk about how we can help them, sort of thing. So I just wanted to sort of paint that because I'm like, this is where we were, and this is the beef that I have, and we're still kind of there. And I think this is what we should be moving towards in terms of storytelling and making the people that are viewing our content feel seen and heard. But I'm going to shut up for a second. Christina, do you have any thoughts there?
No, I do have some thought there, and I fully agree. But when I think about storytelling in general, right, the reason why I think people are talking about it even more now and why it's so important is because we know that storytelling is an innate human characteristic. Like we do it
Right.
to evoke emotion, we do it to bond, we do it to do all these things. So it shouldn't be different just because a business does it. And I
I
think
happen to be wearing a camping and campfire shirt because that is, yeah, you're
love to
absolutely right.
kumbaya us.
Exactly. Like sitting around a campfire telling stories to each other is
Yeah.
goes back to ancient times.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think now it's so hard, to go off of what Adam was saying, it's so hard to break through all the noise with the constant bombardment of content that's out there. And I think especially with video content, right? You only have a short bit to one capture their attention. But then if you capture their attention and then you completely jump right into the sales pitch, it's gonna lose them for the next video that you post out. So I think there's a lot of like behavioral science that we can probably push into the storytelling aspect, but really from the business side, like I have found all the content that people have most engaged with is a piece that typically has like people have emotionally connected with it.
Hmm.
And so that emotional connection could be some like obviously it could be something that you made them feel good or whatever, but it could also be humor, it could also be relatability. There's like a lot of components that gets into why you can make that story sticky. And I think that's the challenge. But maybe with like AI and everything like that, we could also assume that the emotional aspect of storytelling might be a little more removed, but
Mm.
that's why we should probably fight that good fight and figure out how we could be more creative when it comes to the message we're trying to share out.
I really like if I could like synthesize a little bit what I've heard. Ademola, I was hearing a lot of like focus your story on maybe a customer, right? Talk about them, how you helped them, right? Like, let me give you a customer example. Here's what we did for them. And then your audience can say, I'm like that customer. I identify with them and I'm starting there. So you're kind of meeting them where they're at.
Right.
And then you're leading them on this journey of here's the story of our relationship together and
Mhm.
how everybody benefited. Okay, great. I think that a fundamentally powerful story to tell anybody is like, here's how I've helped somebody else. Can you imagine getting the same help from me or my
Right.
organization? That makes tons of sense.
Yeah.
And then Christina, I was hearing a little bit about, you almost want to make sure that you are consistently good at storytelling because that first video, did they get their attention? Did I give you 10 minutes of my time? Did I give you 20 minutes of my time? Did I get a lot out of that? And depending on how I felt about that, am I going to come back to you for another story? Am I going to come back to you for more content? Or am I just going to already write you off? Because
Right.
that first one or that second one, I didn't feel connected to. So I just know every time I see that, I'm just going to skip
Yeah.
on that content from this company. Is that kind of
Yeah.
where you're going with that?
Yeah. And just to kind of add to that, I find the companies that are really good at this, like they do a ton of customer research. And in that research, I guess after as a result of knowing exactly who their customers, that their prospects are, they can be as bold as saying like, hey, this is you, like you pee your pants every single day, right? We used to be there. We used to do that too. And
Yeah.
this is how we can help you stop peeing your pants. This is the transformation that we're going to take you on. And also, like, these are all the other people that we helped stop doing that, right? If that's a future that you want for yourself, then, that's something that we can help you with. And I feel like from that, like, that's the pitch. And I should sort of preface this by saying, like, you don't always have to pitch when it comes to video content. I feel like 99% of the time you should just be trying to connect with your audience, so
Yeah.
that the 1% of the time that you do pitch, then it really hits because people are already invested in your content and your business, right? But before I go off on too much of a tangent here, I think just being bold and being able to say, like, this is exactly who I'm speaking to, you may get fewer people that actually resonate with the content, but the people that you do get to resonate with it are so much more invested because they feel like it was made specifically for them, right?
Mm,
And it goes back to the, do you want 1,000 true fans, or do you want a million sort of like, we kind of like this company, you know?
right.
So
Actually, even to build a little bit of that too, to build on that, because as you were talking, I just kept thinking, I remember somebody a long time ago had told me, like, if you spend a lot of your days trying to convince people to believe the thing that you're saying because you yourself don't believe it, because you have to convince yourself, that is a problem. They're like, they're like, and the only way you'd really know is if and I hate to use this word because I feel like it should be eliminated from social altogether, but the only way is that you have to be authentic, right? You have to actually feel that pain yourself. And I think oftentimes, especially if you're in a marketing position, a lot of times you're like, how do I show that off? Like, how do I feel this pain? And Animal, when you said you should do your research, that is a big component. Like, how do people interpret video? How do people like to digest content? Sometimes you just got to figure out what it is to get, like, to make it fit.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I fully believe that you can build an entire content strategy based on what your customers are asking and telling you. And a lot of
Yep.
people start with, like, what do we want to say to the world? And when they should be starting with, what are our customers like having issues with, or
Right.
how can we represent them? And I feel like that is a missed opportunity from a lot of companies.
Yeah, I think
no.
like
Oh,
if
go ahead.
I look back at I was a seller here at Vimeo, and we always started our conversation with the customers like, last time we spoke, you told us this, right? Here's what you said to us. Here's the pain points you brought to our attention. Here's how we think we're gonna make things better for you, right? Because I fundamentally agree that if somebody's giving me their time, I need to be providing value almost immediately to them. And that's even just watching one of my videos, right? I need to respect that they have millions of options when it comes to content consumption, right? And
Mhm.
if they're on my site or they're on my social media feed, I need to be respectful of that and make sure that that content is in service to them and is going to bring them some kind of value, right? And so like I shouldn't say Vimeo has been taking a lot of feedback from customers and saying, okay, we need to be able to tell a story and provide some flexibility within that video to do more than a passive viewing experience. And so one of the things that I've seen us do with some good effect, and some of our customers do with those like customer stories, is sometimes you're telling a story about this customer came to us with this problem and we want to use that as an example or as a use case, right? Or as a case study, maybe is the way to say that. But we want to like give the audience an opportunity to go to that customer's website or go to another page about deeper into that problem set or deeper into the solutions that were put forward, right? And so one of the things that we've been working on is making it so that in those storytelling videos, you have the ability to invite the audience to skip ahead, dig in deeper, go to a page, book a meeting, right? With little interactive elements or things like that that show up over the video to assist with that storytelling or let people say, okay, I've heard enough of this story. I'm now ready to take the next step in my buyer journey or my listener journey. I'm now ready to click a thing and get into, I'm now ready to book a meeting, right? I mean, half of us are just trying to convert people to, get on my calendar so I can meet with you or go to the buying page or what have
Mhm.
you. And sometimes in that video, you might not want it to show up in the very beginning, right? Because we've learned that you got to front load some value and all that kind of stuff before you have a call to action to convert. But having it easy as an element there that's clickable on the video to just like jump off to that next step. I kind of would like to hear from both of you. When does that feel right to start to have invites to learn more, choose a different path? Maybe I'm done watching a video, maybe I want to go somewhere else. And then that CTA.
Yeah, for sure. I can start. Yeah, I'm obsessed with the concept of interactive video. I feel like my eyes kind of opened when I watched Bandersnatch on Netflix. And for those of you that don't know, it's like a Black Mirror episode that's like an
Yes.
interactive Netflix video. And I thought it was so cool. And the thing that I realized about it was, even though like I wasn't super invested in the story, I found that I had to explore every single option because I felt like I was in control of the content that I was seeing. And that concept was really like a really powerful realization for me, because I was like, if we could like have information in front of us and we could sift through it in the way that we want, how
Mm.
much more would we consume of that content? So for me, like I've been trying to get a few companies on the bandwagon of like, hey, you need interactive video. These are the things you need to include in terms of information that you're giving out to people, and then put them in the driver's seat. If you put them in the driver's seat, they're way more likely. I think I read a stat. It was like 30 to 50% more higher watch through rate on the content that you put out. And I was like, it's so easy to implement. You just have to think through like how someone who is interacting with your content for the first time would think about your brand, what questions they would have. And if they show up at the right time, then you're very much likely to even get people that reach out because they're like, I thought your video was freaking awesome. I just wanted to say that. And I think these people might be able to use your service, that sort of thing. Um, I'm going to stop there. Anyone have any thoughts? I'm way too passionate about this, so I could talk for
No,
30
no,
minutes.
I love your passion. 'Cause when you guys are talking about this, all I keep thinking is this is like the elevated version of, instead of just having timestamps, you're going even beyond that. Like I like the interactivity on that. And funny that you mentioned the Netflix. Like I was literally just talking about this to somebody else. Like remember when freaking what is that show? Black Mirror came
Yeah.
out with the choose your own episode thing. And I remember actually that, you want to talk about word of mouth. I kept talking to different people. I'm like, which one did you choose? Because I didn't want to watch like the entire thing. But then somebody actually convinced me that you should actually choose this one instead because
Yeah.
of the interaction. And I was like, oh, okay, I like it. But no, I
Yeah.
really like that. And I think about like back to thinking about social behavior. How annoying is it when you're like really invested in somebody's like hook and story, and all of a sudden they're like, follow me for part 2, and then it's a 50-part series. And you're like, where am I supposed to go? Like,
Yeah.
I just want to know if Pam left with Peter. That's all I want to know. I like, can somebody please help me?
You okay, Christina? I don't even know. You're getting into this next thing I wanted to talk about a little bit of, which is there's interactive elements, right? Where you can build in a choose your own adventure kind of thing, or click here to find out more sort of experience. But we've built out an ask the video capability. So you could have the video, your whole story, and Christina, you're like, I just want to know how it ends, right? Or I just want to know the price point, or I just want to know the markets you serve. You could ask a question, and if that answer lives in the video, we'll serve it to your audience and then show them where in the video that answer is.
Hmm.
So you could say, look, I have long form content that gets into everything. But if you want more, there's a little sparkle button that you can tap and ask your question. And if you want to skip ahead, or if you're ready to get in deeper, I've got all these answers here on the video, and I'll bring you right to that moment in the video.
Wow.
Well, then just take my money now.
Well, that's exciting. But no, I think that what happens in video is people think, I don't know if I'm up for a 20-minute video,
Mhm.
right? With some videos like interactive, you can like cut that down a little bit and say, look, this is 5 minutes, and then maybe you have an adventure choice step,
Mm.
and maybe the next step is another 2 minutes or another 3 minutes. And so you're kind of chunking it, right? And the audience experience is like very like, okay, I didn't know I was going to watch a 20-minute video, but I was so engaged
Mm,
I'm now watching a 20-minute video. And then as marketers, we can see the analytics of, well, David chose this path. Ademola chose this other path. So David is interested in trucks and Ademola is interested in cars. So when
mm,
we engage with them, we need to be talking about whatever products they showed interest in that path. But AI asking the video questions is another component there where the audience can say, actually, I now have questions and I just want to
mm,
ask questions
I
of
love
that
that
video.
because you're removing the assumption
yeah.
out and you're just giving the power seat back to the person who's
Mm,
watching it, which is so good.
yeah.
I really
And
think,
actually,
yeah.
sorry, David. Go ahead.
No, yeah,
Mm,
please. I think that's the intention here is to say, look,
mm,
people show up with different desires, and you can't assume that your video is gonna magically know the timing of those desires, right?
right. Right. Yeah, my question, because I'm not super experienced when it comes to Vimeo, so I apologize. But I'm wondering, and I'm sure you get asked this a lot, like when would someone benefit from using Vimeo over like a YouTube or other social sites,
That's a good
So,
point.
platforms? Yeah.
yeah, that's totally fair. I should say that Vimeo is not a social media site
Mm,
as much as it used to be, right? Still in the filmmaker world, we are heavily used for that, right? Filmmakers fighting filmmakers kind of thing. And there's
mm,
plenty of that going on. But when it comes to like marketers and business, we're more of a hosting and delivery site. And so we actually have like published to YouTube, published to LinkedIn, published to Facebook,
mm,
right? So you host with us and you would probably want to use Vimeo for anything you embed on your website because you can say, look, I want my brand everywhere. If somebody clicks on the logo, I don't want them to go to YouTube because my website is not to feed YouTube's funnel, right? My
right.
website is for my funnel.
Mm,
No component I put on there should go to some other website. It should always lead back to me, kind of
mm,
deal, right? So you can say, I want our logo there. And when somebody clicks on the logo, I want them to go someplace specific. Or when this page loads, I want a hero banner video to show up in
mm,
the background kind of thing. But yeah, anytime you're going to embed content, Vimeo is a really good role there. Like we fill that role quite well.
wow,
When it comes to like, I need my content to be discovered on social media, those social media channels are the best place, right? And we can help host and get it ready.
mm,
But if you need content to live on YouTube and you need it to live on LinkedIn, like we'll help you get it there. But when it
mm,
comes to your site, it should probably be Vimeo doing that because we can drive all of those viewers back to your next step in
wow,
your buyer journey. Instead of like, I don't know if you've ever noticed it, but if you pause a YouTube video, immediately there's that banner of suggestions
mm,
that's like tailor made to try and draw your viewer away from your site,
mm,
right? So if you embed a lot of YouTube videos on your site, I get it, it's a free host, but anytime somebody pauses, they are invited to leave,
mm,
right? And you spent thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours building a site, building a story, building that video. The last thing you want is to send 10% of your audience to a different website.
right.
Yeah. So that's
Especially if
what I would
YouTube.
say there,
Oh, that's awesome.
if that
Especially
helps.
because YouTube is just taking it and not paying you for that in most
Right.
cases, right?
Yeah,
So,
for sure. And like you have
yeah.
to worry about ads and stuff, right? Because they
Mm,
do, as I think as of August, they started doing server side ad injection. So
mm.
you can't even tell that they're putting ads on your site now. Like you
Oh,
used to be able to put a listener and listen that they are putting ads on your site, but you can't do that now because it's all server side ad injection. So it's wild. It's
wow.
wild over there.
Not a sneaky behavior.
Yes. Well, what I should say is they're an ad supported platform.
Mm,
That's how they pay the bills. When you come to Vimeo or another host like us, you're paying us upfront, right? And so
mm,
that's how the bandwidth and delivery is all paid for is by our customers instead
Mm.
of
awesome.
by advertisers. Um, I see a question in here. I want to
Mm,
get to this real quick. Courtney is asking, what type of prior work experience or projects do B2B SaaS companies usually look for to get into this kind of marketing role? I feel like this is something that would interest me, but limited sales experience. So, Courtney, I'm going to say I started in tech support and then I was really good with customers, and salespeople said, "We want David to become a sales engineer." And that's how I got my shot into being a salesperson. But some
Mm.
people go straight into sales, and B2B sales usually starts at like an SDR level, like
Mm.
uh, uh, like business development. You're like cold calling people and trying to like book meetings for account executives.
Mhm.
Um, Adamola, Christina, do you have other advice for Courtney here, talking about how to get into B2B SaaS or
Man.
sales specifically, I think?
Uh,
Mm.
Mine was really non-traditional, like the way I got into marketing in general, but as it relates to B2B stuff, I think I was like, how I got hired was actually because I was really good on camera. Like I was not really good. I'm comfortable being on camera, and
She's really
so
good on camera.
I
So
am not. I'm not good. I'm self-deprecating, and I think people can relate to that. So there's a lot of that. No, but I think my background, I worked in a lot of different industries prior to B2B SaaS, which is now my bread and butter. And I think the hardest part is like figuring out, because I work in social, that's been my background for a long time, is figuring out again the storytelling aspect, how I convince the community to really believe in the message. And I'm a big rallier. So I think the way I got in was just simply networking, chatting. And to this day, I'm honestly still wondering if this is the career path that I want for myself. But I think that's the great thing about marketing, is that you can kind of shape your work to however you want it to look. And so I don't know if that's a good answer, but Adamola, you'll probably take it away and probably have a much better answer than what I had.
no, I don't know. For me, like it was, I just got super lucky. The first company that I worked for out of school was a company called Vidyard, and what they specialize in is like sending video through email. And at first, I was like, "That's stupid," but then but then I saw the response rates, and I was like, wow, if you do this well, the response rates are so much higher than just sending text because people get a sense of who you are, your personality. And for me, like, I feel like I had a bit of a cheat code because I've been practicing magic for about 20 years. So I'm a card magician.
Oh,
And
wow. That's
I start, yeah, thanks. I started putting those into the like first 5 seconds of the video, and I was like, wow, like if you use video, which is a medium that people are still not leveraging enough, and B, like have a really captivating hook, like you can get on the phone with almost everyone. So I would do that. I would use it in all the other jobs that I sort of did. So I moved around to like Shopify, Affirm, which is a buy now, pay later platform. And I used it in every single role that I had. And I just found like it was so much easier to get in the room with people to a point where I was like, I need to do this full time and teach other companies how to do this.
that's so
And
cool.
then yeah, I mean, it just kind of worked out.
But
Yeah.
in magic tricks, it's also how we became friends.
You're
That's
right.
that's how
I
he.
feel like I'm missing out now. I need you to email me a video of
I
you
got you.
doing a magic trick. Okay, thank you. And I think that that honestly is one of those pieces. If we could jump into this a little bit, like the like authenticity of showing up, like showing like a kind of a fun aspect of your humanity, right? To other people's like, hey, here's this like fun thing I can do, right? I'm showing up to you as like another human being with talent, right?
Mm,
And you might think that's silly, you might think it's amazing, but either way, you connect with me on not just like a meeting, business, math, right? You're connecting with me as like a human being. If we could talk a little bit about some strategies to help people do similar work where we don't have to go learn magic, but how can we show our humanity and connect with people even as a business?
mm. It's a good question. Do you want me to start, Christina?
Sure, go ahead.
Cool. Very quickly, I think if your company doesn't have like company values, you need to start there, right?
Or
So the reason I say that is because if you have internal values and they are executed and reflected well, then it should be your goal to make sure that everyone outside of your company also knows those values, right? And that comes through in your content. So if you have people that are like, if you one of your values is authenticity, which is like a buzzword, that people are using quite a bit now, you need to figure out what authenticity means to your brand and then execute that outside, right? A lot of companies try to follow what everyone else is doing. And I feel like that in itself, copying other companies is not authentic. But going back to my main point, it's like if you figure out how the company runs internally and everyone sort of adheres to that, and then you're like, okay, we need to bring our personality and our values to the outside world, that is a really good starting point for figuring out what kind of content you want to make, in my opinion.
Yeah. And would you even like put those values into your like tags and into your like SEO strategy to say like, one of our values, like one of our values is asking why, right? Is to always
Mm,
challenge the status quo.
right.
And so like, would it make sense to say like, we just have like a bunch of tags for ask why and a bunch of content around how we are showing up and challenging status quo kind of thing?
Yeah.
Is that kind of in
Um,
line with what you're thinking there?
yeah, I think that's great. Like if there's a tag that you can own that is along the lines of Ask Why, like Ask Why
Mhm.
Vimeo or something like
Yeah,
that,
sure.
I think
Yeah.
it really like that is a really powerful strategy as well. Just owning a hashtag or like owning a keyword. I would definitely add that as well. That's really smart. Not
I
something I
think
thought of.
also
Yeah.
like to add in here with what, adding tags, I think also figure out a way to own the narrative around, and that ties back to your values and your mission and everything like that. And all the companies that I've been with, what I found to be really successful is one, you got to figure out what median that you're trying to reach these people at.
Mm,
For this conversation, I'm going to say a lot of which is going to be on social. And even on social, different channels, they're going to have different nuances, right? So how you show up on those channels is also could be very different. But I think what Adamola was saying really rings true in the fact that like if you know who you are, like as a brand, as yourself, as whoever it is, then it'll be easier for you to show up despite the different nuances because your core will still remain the same. It's just
mm,
like how you portray those things. And I found that like for me, I'm allergic to the marketing fluff. I am allergic to the traditional bullshit. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say that. Crowd, excuse me, but
No,
so
no, no.
sorry. But I'm just allergic to that type of nature. And I think when I look at who the buyers are nowadays, right, you're having Gen Zs and millennials sort of taken over, and you have to like sort of um, catch up with how people are consuming content in general. They're no longer reading newspaper ads. They're not like really deep diving into like, your advertisements and commercials. They are looking for chop short, like stuff that can capture their attention. They're also and I remember I read a research where somebody was like, a lot of buyers now are basing their decisions on the values that company bring forth. Like, are they really for the environment? Like, they
Right.
tie it to their own personal values. So I
mm.
think when companies
Yes.
could figure out what their values are and convey that, like, with Vimeo saying you guys should ask why. With us, like at Plot, we're very much of like we are building something for social media marketing teams because they're the bottom of the totem pole. So we want to make sure we're always there for that. And so everything, other content we push out is that it has to be able to relate back to them because we want to speak with conviction. We want to and so I think in the a roundabout way of all saying this really is to just echoing what Adamola said, figure out who you are, and then that will naturally build authenticity. Because if you're trying to be somebody you're not, if you're trying to jump on these unhinged, trendy content because you feel like that's what's going to get attention, it's going to
Mm.
get lost in the sauce. Because at the end of the day, your brand is not going to stick out. It's going to blend in with the thousands of other content that people see every day.
Right.
Mm.
No, absolutely. And you have to do things like manage you have to manage your brand, right? Which of course is like some tactical stuff like brand kits, right? Your logos, your colors, the way you show up, of course. But then you also have to make sure that if you are creating content to unpack some of what you're saying there, like sometimes you have to make content that is specific to the lane you're going into, like TikTok or Reels versus Facebook, right? Very
Always.
different audiences, right? Very different audiences. Facebook is almost in the newspaper world now, like, but either way, you have to show up correct in those spaces, right? So the content needs to be tailored to
Mhm.
that lane, but it shouldn't lose who you are and
No.
shouldn't lose who your organization is. And And I think that that's something that like a lot of companies as they transition away from like small team,
Mhm.
8, 10, 15 people, and they start to get bigger into the 50 to 100, it can start to feel like, oh, we need to have this crisp, polished
Mhm.
look like what you see out of name giant tech company, right? It's like, no, 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 no. People expect giant tech company to show up like giant tech company. You should show up like you are, right? Like the scrappy team that you are,
Mhm.
that has a lot of character and a lot of like personality and
Yeah.
values, like
And I
you
think
said.
people should be more forgiving with themselves and their teams when they're putting stuff out there. Because one, it's hard to put yourself out there, but also at the same time, like, why are we always trying to be somebody we're not? You
Yeah.
know? And I feel like we emulate all of these big companies who have established their brands, but that took a lot of years of work. And for me, I'm just like, forgive yourself if you want to like experiment in the content and all these other things like that. And like, you don't have to like you're not in competition with these big brands, you know? You should feel totally comfortable with doing what you need to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
agreed. I agree. And I feel like sometimes like leaders can look at that aspirationally, like, oh, I want to be like that. I want to be this
Mhm.
giant company. So I want all of our marketing material to look like this giant company. It's like, leader, I love you and I hear you, but let's show up
Yeah.
honest about where we are in our values,
Yeah.
Um,
And sorry, very quickly, I just wanted to add one more thing.
yeah.
Um, a company that really inspires me is Ryanair in Europe.
Oh my gosh.
And at some point in time, like they kept trying to be like this elevated sort of like airline company, and everyone was just like, "You guys suck. You're crap." And then at some
Your
point,
door's
they were
open on both sides. There's no way.
Yeah.
at some point in time, they were just like, you know what, we do suck, and we're just gonna like lean into that. And their social following has exploded ever since they kind of leaned into the fact that they're like, okay, we're not that good of an airline, and everyone keeps telling us that, so let's just do that.
Yeah.
But they're being authentic now, and it's working. So I'm gonna drop their Instagram in the chat here, but just a company I really respect for like not trying to not be themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that like whenever you're going to craft that message, when you make the pivot and you're like, okay, it's time for us to lean into what we really are, or it's
Yeah.
time for us to do this. I'll just like blatantly say as a Vimeo technology stack, right? Whenever you think about like people trying to create content quickly, because I think a lot of times you have to show up correct, and if you don't want to have like a whole production team that has 30,000 like review steps, and you're going to build everything by committee. If you're in that space now where you're like, look, I'm ready to show up authentic, I'm ready to do some work quickly, just as a little like plug to everybody, we have the ability to create and record stuff within the site, and we provide you a little teleprompter. So if you have your message, you have your bullet points, we'll give you a little teleprompter that scrolls along with you. And that has helped me a lot because as a seller and now as a marketer, I'm trying to get rid of how many meetings I have. And so instead of having like an hour-long meeting or a 30-minute meeting or even a sales meeting, I'll just record a little video and I've got my 6 bullet points in my teleprompter and I'll make sure I hit my points. And then I've got my video done and I get it out there. And I have found that that's sort of like I am doing this on my own and I'm not putting this to 20 rounds of review means that I'm showing up a lot more authentically
Yes.
because I'm hitting my points and it's out the door. And I haven't spent 6 days, 6 weeks working on a 30-minute, 10-minute, 5-minute asset that's going to be
We've all
seen
been
by
there.
however many people, right? Like I think that the ability to say, look, I'm just going to make this on my own. And maybe my boss gets to look at it before it goes out the door, but it's not going to be a whole bunch of people. So we can be a little more
Yeah.
authentic in what we create and how we create it.
Mhm.
I think
Um,
we have some questions.
We do. Let's pivot to some questions. So I see Christina here. How to make educational tech videos more engaging for the viewers, such as step-by-step instructions, videos, or videos about how to use a software feature. Okay. I think, Christina, I love this. E-learning, product marketing, product understanding, all of that stuff. I'm going to show somebody how to use something so they
Mhm.
use it more, so they buy more. This is one of those areas that I think that like people who are in marketing sometimes forget that half our job is just education.
Yeah,
Right?
no,
Just
seriously.
helping people, how do you do the thing? I'm like, well, here's how you do the thing. Well, now that I know how to do the thing, I'm going to keep doing the thing. I'm going to do it better. I'm going to keep buying your product,
Mm.
right? Christina, when it comes to like ways of making it engaging for viewers, I think go and find your top creators that show you how to do stuff and get nerdy about it. What do they do? Do they a lot of them these days are starting with like a 2-second
Oh,
blip about like the problem that they solved or the problem they're facing or whatever, and then they get into step-by-step stuff, right? So they start off with like a little hook, right? But go and like analyze how your favorite instructors are making videos on the platforms that you go to. That's my thing. Is like study others and see their methodology and bring your voice to that structure. What do you guys think for education and
I definitely what I've started doing is like I've basically TikTokified my product videos. And that has actually drawn in a lot more engagement, I've noticed, because one, I feel like that's how people have been consuming content lately, right? Similar to what you were saying, you get them with a hook and then you go in with a step by step. And my whole thing is always like, I try to, in that hook, I need to position it so that way they know like how to put them, like they're living in the shoes that, or I'm living in their shoes, whatever it might be. But my whole thing, like I could talk about a really boring topic, right? Which is like how do I explain to my boss that my proactive engagement is actually working, or like my community effort is being measured, and then I go into showing off the product and people. And it's so funny because I've noticed, because and I've done A/B testing on this as well. I've
Hmm.
done like really polished video with like the really nice screen recording and the step-by-step walkthrough where it's almost like my voice is AI, because I'm like, hi, welcome to blah 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 blah, you know. And then, but what I've noticed is like when I do something scrappy where it's just a recording of the screen and I'm pointing to things and then it pans back to me, those like switches, I think it keeps people more engaged because I'm also reacting things. I talk to them like I'm directly talking to one person versus, and maybe it's easy because I do it on this device and I'm just constantly switching things back and forth like that. But I think that keeps people from snoozing or going off. And I try to keep it in under like 2 minutes max.
Right.
So yeah, that's my little tidbit. But Adamola does a lot of this type of video educational video work. So get away.
yeah. I mean, I'm still trying to crack the code, if I'm being completely honest. I think the rules to live by for me have been like, don't give away everything in the first 10 seconds, which I see a lot of people do when it comes to educational content. So they'll be like, hey, in this video, we're going to teach you this and this and this, and this is how you do it. And then they go into this long explanation, and people are like, you could have made this 10 seconds instead of 5 minutes. But what I see a lot of really creative creators doing is they'll be like, this is what you're going to learn. You're going to want to stick around for step 3, and step 3 is not complete without step 5, right? And then people go, oh, okay. I mean, fine, I guess. But then if you elevate the content and you make it engaging, like it's not just you talking to the camera, maybe you're moving around or you're doing something, that is a way to get people invested. So I don't have like a very strict rule book for this, but I think like just letting people know at the beginning what they're there for, and then letting them know that if they don't watch through, then they're going to be missing pieces. That FOMO approach has been very successful for me, but I still don't know if it's the absolute best approach.
I want to add to this because yes, there is like a sense of like I need you to get all the information, right? And you have to tell them you're invested in this, right? I think that the last piece I want to give is that there's that initial learning, right? But then they're also going to hopefully trust you that you're a knowledge expert and come back to you. And then they're going to want to search, right? And they're going to want to do like just in time learning to say, I don't want the 6 steps. I want the 1 step that I'm missing, right? And so now they got to get back to that video and either ask AI, ask the video question like I mentioned earlier, or maybe you have all of those videos in a library and they have to be able to search all of your knowledge base videos and get every time this page is talked about in the transcript or in the video, that's what they see. They go, oh, this video talks about that function 18 times. That's probably the video I care about. Cool. Here's all the times that it gets mentioned. That looks like the line. Okay, now I'm in the video. I'm watching the part that I need. Right. And I think that like a lot of folks that go to YouTube, they're doing this like just in time learning thing. I need to learn how to like change the battery on my car. Right. And then invariably, the first thing you're looking for is like, okay, is this video chaptered so I can get to the part that I'm stuck at, right? And I think that's where like we have put a lot of effort into making it so that yes, videos are chaptered, auto chaptered, but also every word spoken is searchable. So if I'm trying to learn something just in time, I already know that you're my knowledge expert because I've watched some of your content. Now I'm going to come back and dive right to that spot where I'm stuck. And then I'm spending 5 minutes, 2 minutes getting what I need. And then I'm back to my day job. And so we might look at that and go, gosh, they only watched this video for like 2 minutes. But actually, it was the best 2 minutes they needed to watch. Right. And the satisfaction is so much higher. So I think there's something there to that. And I know we spent a lot of time on this one question, Christina, but I think that like that's really valuable. Is any other thoughts on education videos?
No, not for me. Yeah. Thanks
Um,
for that.
let's see here. Question from Ishanji. I'm doing end-to-end sales in B2B SaaS company. What do you think I should head to now to grow in my career? Sales is can be really great. I mean, you depending on how your product is and depending on your sales team, you can be quite set and then go into management or marketing, or into product. But those are kind of the places where I see salespeople go. What do you two think?
I've seen salespeople move to like customer success and then level up to like the entire customer experience because they sort of like have been on those calls and they kind of understand the pain points and also like what is it about them that will keep them with the company longer. So I think because sales, I feel like sales obviously a great career asset, but what I've noticed is it does take a special type of personality to stay in sales a long time. And I think if you end up feeling like it's more of a burden because you're like, oh my God, I have to make all these calls or whatever like that, and it's not as fulfilling, then I think one way is like what aspect of that job was really interesting to you? Like, was it talking about the product? Because maybe then you'll be a product marketer or you'll just like be in product in general. Is that like making sure that the customers are taken care of? Then maybe you'll go into like, customer success. Is it like you really want to get out there and like just be in front of people and, networking? Community could also be. So there's like so many ways that there's so many career jumps that you can go through, but I think it really boils down to what it is that you yourself like about your current job. And yeah.
Right. Partnerships is also a path.
100%.
Yeah, I think partnerships is really cool. The reason I was in partnerships for a while is because I'm like, I just want everyone to win.
Yeah.
And there is a world in which, there is a world in sales in which everyone wins too, as long as it's the right solution for them and you don't oversell, which, I could talk forever about that. But partnerships is a very viable path, I would say. And that's something that I would look into because it's like over a longer period of time. And then it's delayed gratification, of course, but the benefits of like having great partners can be monumental for an organization. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Yeah. And like Gina says in chat, that's us. That's Rep Genius and all of us friends here together. And I think that the last thing I want to say there, is since you are out there in the workforce and you are doing stuff, start asking people, what's your day-to-day like? You know? And then imagine that for yourself. Is that what you want? Right. And that's frankly how I moved from sales to marketing. I'd been in sales for 16 years. I loved it. I was very good at it. But I was like, I need to grow. I need to learn something new. Right. And I asked around to a bunch of different teams and found my place here as a good next step. But you're starting from a good spot. Like you have a place that you are at and you can do some asking around and imagine those roles for yourself and that day to day for yourself and, make that next step. whenever is appropriate. Okay. Christina is asking, which video hosting platforms are best for adding interactive elements? Obviously, Christina, it's Vimeo. That's what we're here for. So, what I will say about that is there's a bunch of different companies that do interactive video, right? And it kind of depends on your focus, right? If it's compliance and training, then there's like Camtasia or whatever to make a video that does like compliance training stuff. But when it comes to like sales, marketing, connecting with customers, that kind of thing, Vimeo has a really strong pedigree there. So by all means, come and check us out in terms of how we can help you with connecting with your customers, connecting with your audiences from an interactive perspective, especially public facing, lead generation, marketing conversions, all of that kind of stuff is really our focus. So I'm gonna leave that one as answered, and we'll obviously invite folks to do additional research, but Vimeo's put a lot of effort into interactivity and making it a really solid platform where either you control everything or we automatically build some stuff for you. Okay, we have a little bit of time left. I would love it if we could talk a bit about keeping your tech stack current and keeping your content up to date and current. So Adamola, maybe we'll start with you. How do you go about deciding your video tech stack and making sure that your video content is staying up to date with your business, with your customer's mission, that kind of thing? Like, what are some strategies that people can use to keep up to date?
Just experience a lot of pain, I would say.
Trauma.
So exactly, yeah. I think if I'm being honest, I'm pretty reactive when it comes to sort of choosing the tech stack side of things. Again, like I think I don't know if I mentioned it today, but for me, I'm a very like big picture thinker, and I'm like, hey, here's where we need to go. But then in terms of like putting the pieces together and like putting a process in place, I really struggle with that. So typically speaking, I'll be like, hey, this is our North Star. And then there's someone behind me that's just like, okay, cool. Like, this is the process that we need to get there. Um, but I would say, like, jokes aside, I'm just obsessed with the industry. So there's a lot of tools that I test out. And there's a lot of tools that, I feel are necessary for companies to start experimenting with. So on the bleeding edge of things, there's interactive video, which I know in 2 years' time will be way more common. But tools like that, it's I find it hard to convince companies to hop on that. Um, but I think for me personally, like it's just basically like experiencing a pain and then saying, okay, is there a video tool or is there something that I could use to fix that pain and going from there. So probably not the best answer, but very reactive.
That's good.
Um, and then, sorry, the second part of that question, just
No, I think that was and yeah, keeping stuff up to date, like all your content and things like
right.
that, like content
Oh,
refresh point.
on the content side, okay. So I do have people that I like to follow on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. And what I do is like, and this is a strategy that I, advise to anyone. In terms of staying current and relevant, what I typically do is I look at content over the last 3 months from that creator, and I look at an outlier video of theirs, and I'm like, okay, why did this perform well? And I try to break that down into, okay, this was the story they told or the structure, the pacing. And I'm like, okay, is there a similar story that I can tell that follows this formula? Or should I talk about this topic? And that's how I stay relevant in terms of like our marketing material. Um, but I find with that, like you can really only account for 3 months worth of content, which in my world is a lot, but to some people, you might be thinking, what about the remaining 9 months of the year?
Yeah,
Definitely not on that boat of like planning for 12 months, but that's how we stay relevant or current on the content side.
that's awesome. Christina, I'll give you 2 minutes.
Yeah, I think for me, it was how I stay relevant. It's pretty much I always make sure the core of the content stays the same. Like whatever, if it's a product video, whatever it is, if it's still relevant to the company, if anything needs to be updated. But the core messaging in the beginning of any content we create has always been there. The format and the stylistic constantly changes, and it changes based on platform. It changes based on what's trending. I mean, I usually, whenever I see a big piece of content, I'm like, how do we break this down into smaller pieces, and how do we like shape this in different ways? Because people interpret the messaging differently based on how you want to show up for it. And one thing that I actually had to learn really rough is that I didn't know that once you uploaded content to like YouTube or something like that, that didn't stay relevant if like your website changes or if the information on there is gone. And then at that point, it's like the majority of the message is still true, but there's that one portion that's not true. Now what? And I went through a painful experience where I got called out by customers and they were like, you gave us the wrong information here. And I was like, well, what's the right information at that time? And so there was a lot of that we had to worry about. But that.
I'll plug, you can replace videos on Vimeo.
Oh, okay then. Okay then.
So-
I mean, like by all means, if you want to continue this BFF ship, like let's talk,
Yeah,
because I'm learning
sure.
so much right now.
For sure. Yeah, because you're absolutely right. Like a page has changed, a fact has changed. It's like, well, just change that one fact, replace the video, all the places where you've embedded it or emailed it out or linked to it now will only show the correct version.
That just saved my entire life.
Okay, well, there you go. There you see. All right, I love that. Oh, this is wonderful. This is wonderful. The last thing I wanted to say there on like staying current with tech stack stuff is make sure that the products you're using integrate with other products, right? That the Ademola mentioned earlier, partnerships matter. Those are when you're thinking about, gosh, I have to use this one platform. Well, does it work with your email provider? Does it work with your marketing automation provider? Does it work with your lead generation system? Like, make sure they all talk to each other. So you're not sitting there like downloading a thing or exporting a thing and then manually moving it to the thing. And then like there's a formatting problem or whatever, right? Like make sure your tech stack talks to all those components, talk to each other is the kind of last piece I want to say there on that front. Well, folks, we are almost at time. I want to say this has been really phenomenal. I love this whole conversation that we've had. I've learned a lot about showing up correct for folks and like being forward with our values, right? And I think that's been the personally my personal takeaway is like be forward with your values as a company. And I plan on bringing that message to more folks here at Vimeo. Maybe one more, like, what's your key takeaway for each of you as we close this out for everybody?
Mine, and I'm not just saying this because you're here, but mine is that Vimeo is actually pretty awesome, and I understand a bit more about what it does. I think the features are really cool, and I have it open on my computer here, and I'm gonna dive in. So, yeah,
Thank you.
just want to say that.
Let me know if you wanna like an enterprise license or something like that. I'll hook you up.
I appreciate that.
No, I literally want to use all your interactive features because I feel like that would be such a good way to keep people engaged in the content that we do.
Yeah, 100%. Reach out to me afterwards, and I'll get you guys some demo licenses and all that kind of stuff. No worries.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I feel like I just got into the cool kids club.
There it is. There it is. Well, awesome. Everyone on chat, you've been just incredible. The feed has been like lifting me up this entire time. I just really appreciate everybody showing up. The career advice stuff, I love that we could take a second and like just help people out with their careers. That feels really good. Like personally, feels really good. I hope that advice lands well for all of you, and that
we should do another one just about just about our careers in general. I feel like that could be quite the story to share, going back to storytelling.
100%. 100%. Absolutely. Well, thank you all again. I don't see any more questions. You're all incredible and amazing. And Gina and the rest of the Rev Genius folks, thank you so much for hosting us and bringing all of us together, audience and panelists alike. I've just had such a great time.
Me too. Thanks so much.
Thank you.